Welcome to Behind the Warrior, a podcast presented by the EOD Warrior Foundation. This series will focus on resources, interviews, and topics impacting EOD warriors, their families, and the military community at large.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Behind the Warrior podcast. I'm your host, Maria Shabla, and today we are very excited to be starting a 4-part series celebrating women in EOD. And we are very excited to be speaking with active duty Army EOD Tech and Garrison Command Sergeant Major Brie Kotula. Welcome to the podcast, Brie.
Hi.
Hi. Well, Brie, I always like to start from the beginning. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself? Where did you grow up and what was your childhood like?
Yeah. So again, my name is Brie Kotula. I grew up actually in rural Maryland. Had your typical suburban childhood. I have an older brother, a twin sister. We're only about 18 months apart from each other. So think of Irish twins, and it was 3 of us running around creating ruckus across for pretty much everybody.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we were pretty much a handful. So we never had the same babysitter more than once. But again,
goodness.
Totally typical conventional family. My parents have been married for over 50 plus years. And then from an early age, my parents taught us how to be like independent, always looking for the next adventure. And then as a child, I was outgoing, self-reliant, and probably would say the same for right now. I always like to look positive in almost every situation. So.
Wow. So your twin, is it identical or fraternal?
She's identical. Yep.
Oh, that's so neat. My mom actually has an identical twin, and it's crazy just like how they are completely on the same wavelength with so many things.
Yeah.
Distance.
Distance. So she doesn't live with me. We look very similar. Our hair is curly, so it curls the same way. We just don't act the same way. I would say I'm more outgoing than she is, and she's more the meaner one, I guess. And then like she's always dressing up and always doing the makeup and getting all fancy just to go check the mail. And I'm just like, we're wearing sweatpants.
Oh my gosh, that's funny. Well, it's funny that you say that because I feel like my mom's twin and her are very different. It's almost like they're opposites, like they balance each other.
Yep.
So, that's cool.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so Brie, what inspired you to join the military and then go into EOD?
I think from the earliest memories, I always wanted to be a GI Joe person. Just from the cartoons, the toys, everything like that. My grandparents, my dad's father and my mom's mother both served in the Navy, and it was either they were naval nurse or he was a naval dentist. So I had that kind of upbringing and a little bit of background. None of my aunts and uncles served. My parents didn't serve, but I wanted to do. Unfortunately, I went to high school early and I graduated at 17. And my parents adamantly refused to sign the paperwork when I was younger. And they said, "Go to college. You need a college education. This is important." And I was like, "Okay." So tried the college, gave it a good college hoe, and I just wasn't directed. I didn't have a focus. So I think that was where some of my downfalls were. So I used to run track for the state of Maryland, University of Maryland. They cut the program when I was in my first semester. So second semester, I'm moving back home with mom and dad. And I'm like, oh, this is awful.
Oh, wow.
So actually was working a couple dead end jobs and like at a dealership, just being a basic Jiffy Lube mechanic, so just changing oil and fluids and stuff like that. And then I was also working for Comcast Cable, and that's where I met my recruiter. I was at his house installing cable, and he's like, "Hey, have you ever thought about enhancing your career?" And I was like, "Nope." And he was like, I knew he was trying to sell me, and I was like, not interested. But I'll take your card in case I'm interested. I was in my spring semester, and then 9/11 happened. And as soon as the phone lines were up, I was calling the recruiter because I was like, I need to go. I want to go. My parents were actually in Las Vegas at the time, and my sister was down in DC, and I couldn't reach any of them. My brother was up in Philly. and I couldn't reach any of them. So I was like, you know what? I can reach a recruiter because he's going to answer. So I didn't even tell them until after actually everybody had come home. Or my parents had come home, and I was like, hey, just so you know, I am enlisted and I'll be shipping off sometime in November. And there was a there was a delayed entry program that I had joined. So basically I had to finish up my semester, which didn't end until December. So I was the delayed entry program and shipped off to basic January of 2002. And then fast forward, I went to Fort Jackson for my basic training, stayed here for my original MOS. I was a light wheel mechanic first, went from basic training, AIT, and then my first duty station was actually in Germany. And I thought this was the greatest thing until I got to the unit.
Oh, no.
So I got to the unit and it was all men. I was the only female on a whole little base. It was an artillery base. And it was an eye-opening experience because I'm used to being like with a crowd and with my friends and all the girls that I went through AIT with. None of them came to Europe. So I was like, oh, this is weird. This is going to be interesting. But also being said, this was right when we started going into Kuwait. So we had I just gotten there in July, and then February we were shipping off to Kuwait. So I didn't have enough time to like really realize the situations, and then get to Kuwait, and then we're automatically, as soon as we hit ground, we packed the trucks up, got the trucks running, and we were crossing over into the border in Iraq.
Oh my goodness.
We didn't do much maintenance over there at the time. Every once in a while, like a Marine unit would come, we'd do some services, fix flat tires or whatever, and then push them off. And then we slowly transitioned to being like truck drivers and gun trucks. And I was a really good shot. So they're like, you're going to be on the gun ship. I'm like, yes. At one point we got mortared attacked. It was up a route right outside of what's now or what used to be Anaconda. And we're just sitting there. Two dudes show up in a soft shell Humvee, drive around the vehicle. They pick up a tail boom, take some pictures, throw in the back of their truck, and drive off. And I look over my squad leader, I'm like, what was that? And they're like, oh, that's EOD. I was like, I need that job.
Wow.
It looked like they were doing something. And here I was just like sitting in a truck or sitting on top of a truck in a nice suntan, driving back and forth. I was like, this is awful. This is not what I signed up for. So in my head, I was like, I'm finishing my 2 years. I'm done. I'll go back to go figure out what I want to do for college. And that was it. And I got lucky. So somehow I was able to go from that maintenance company to 749th EOD at Andrews Air Force Base. And that like first interaction with the people there was just like amazing. Like they were such a small family. It's when we had modular companies. So it was at most 21 people. I think at the time we were actually under, I think we only had like 15. Wow. And just one trip to the range. And I was like, yep, I need to be their camaraderie and I wanted to be part of it. So as soon as I got the next opportunity, I went to EOD school.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's an interesting story, Brie. Wow. So can you give us some of the highlights of your EOD career?
Yeah, this one's actually a really easy question. So I would say my dream job was last year when I was the 303rd Ordnance Battalion EOD CSM, being a command sergeant major of the only Oconus EOD battalion was phenomenal. We had two units up in Alaska, one in Wainwright, one in Jaber. Then we had an EOD company on Oahu, but we were over a chemical company, and just being able to see how chemical and EOD actually work in a larger scale, because we don't do CTC rotations that they do at Irwin or Fort Polk. They do it like all over the place. So they did all over the islands of Hawaii. They'll do one up in Alaska, where the two units up in Alaska basically go against each other. So that's super fun. And then they do an international. So this year was actually in Philippines, and it was just phenomenal to see our international partners and our U.S. partners get together and how would we fight in a war. So it was actually pretty cool.
That is so interesting.
Some of the other highlights, I served as the EOD Sergeant Major for TPO, Trade Proponent Office, EOD, and I thought that was a nice eye-opening of how the Army works. So Trade Proponent Office, what they do is they look at all the things behind the scenes EOD. So you're talking your policies, your doctrines, your program of instruction. So anything dealing with schools. So we don't deal with phase 2 down in Eglin, but anything in phase 1, we have flexibility to add something, take away something. We did a lot of the new equipment coming out. We were able to prepare the training materials for that, but then also go out there for the NGABs that's coming out. We were out there for the human factor test events. I'm like, hey guys, go out there and break it. Let's see what we can do. Test this equipment to its full capability. So I thought that was kind of cool because you're seeing a different side of EOD and you're seeing a different side of the Army other than looking up. You're actually looking down, like how do we accomplish these? How do we get this? How do we do this? Another opportunity that I had was I was able to, back in 2018, stood up the Assistant Commandant's Office, EOD, under the Chief of Ordnance. At the time, the Chief of Ordnance was General Hoyle, who is also a female badge wearer. And
Yay.
I worked with Major Teller and Lieutenant Colonel Shuey, and what that office was designed to do was be the face of EOD under the Chief of Ordnance. So we would take the things coming to General Hoyle that was all things EOD, and it solved those problems, whether it was congressional or inquiry or actually bringing back the Broussard, just some of the things that we could do to help with the EOD community, Army EOD community. And then another one that was actually pretty fun. I was the first sergeant for 767 EOD down at Fort Liberty. We actually brought the airborne capability to life for the conventional side.
Wow.
28 has always been an airborne EOD company, but they serve different customers. They serve the 28, they serve special operations, they serve those communities, whereas 767 and 722 were designed to go with IRL or GRF or whatever it's called nowadays, but under the 82nd. So if the red balloon goes up and they're going somewhere, we were training to be prepared to follow them with. So.
Awesome. Wow, Brie, what a career you've had. So Brie, here at the foundation, we are really interested in encouraging the community to take care of their mental health. So can you tell us and share how you take care of your mental health?
Yes. So I'm actually a huge advocate for mental health. I've always felt comfortable talking about my mental wellness. My father, before he retired, worked many years between nonprofits and the states of Maryland and Delaware under mental health and addictions.
Oh, wow.
So he's always been my go-to before the military, even during military service. Call him up saying, "Hey, I'm feeling this sort of way," and he'd give me like little things to work on, like start a diary, start a journal, doing some breathing habits and stuff like that, but on the healthy side. So also looking at, hey, are you drinking too much? Like, what's your drinking intake? Like being on that safe aspect. And of course, he's my dad, so he's gonna try and help me. And I knew at any point that if I felt uncomfortable talking to him about a certain subject, he would like hand me off to somebody else. But that was usually before the military. And then since going into being in the military, I know that there's some stigmas about going to see a provider. Oh, they're going to mess up. It's going to mess up job opportunities. It's going to mess up my security clearance. Mm-hmm. I can tell you, I've been seeing a mental health provider in the Army since about 2009. And I got a star on my chest and a little wreath down there, and I'm still going strong. So
mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'd say definitely since about 2009, I had a significant incident on a deployment, and it created a need for me to see somebody other than my father to actually talk about some certain situations, but also get them documented. This was before the time of SHARP. This was before the Army actually mandated that we have victim advocates and stuff like that. So
Mm-hmm.
being able to talk to somebody else about certain things helped me. And then again, we had a really rough 2010 deployment, a really, really rough 2012 deployment. And after those deployments, it was like I was starting to see providers, but I couldn't find a one that would just like niche with me, one that I felt like comfortable opening up like about all the things until I think it was about 2017 or 2018. I met this young captain at the time, and I was like, man, this guy's not going to know anything. I'm gonna try him out. We're gonna try it out. We're gonna see.
Mm-hmm.
And I will tell you, to this day, I still monthly have contacts with him. If I need to, I increase the frequency to weekly if I need to. But he is just a solid provider that I think is also important. It's kind of like finding a best friend. So I can text them and say, hey, sir, are you available? This is what my schedule looks like for the week or today or whatever. So he's been the gentleman that I keep reaching out back and forth to. And honestly, at the higher rank you get, your peer group slims down. So when that slims down, you need to reach out to somebody, have that chatting point or that talking point. And I use him often for like to make sure I'm on the right line. Like, am I crazy? Are you like, just be my great solid sounding board when I don't have a sergeant major peer, or I can't reach down to my first sergeant and talk about something because it's not right, and it's also not always appropriate. So
wow, Brie, that's really inspiring. And I love that point that you're making, that it's really important to try to find somebody that you mesh with. I think that's great. And the perseverance. I mean, you started seeing somebody, a long time ago, and they weren't perfect fit, but you still continued. So I love that message. So you are also a huge believer that EOD is family. Can you tell us what that means to you?
Oh yeah. So in my opinion, and I know it's across the field, EOD is a family. You're in some really tough, sticky situations, not only with your team, with your platoon, with your whole company, that everyone just looks out and takes care of each other. I know for a fact that when I was as a first sergeant or as a junior team member, I'd call my team leader and be like, hey, I need help moving a couch. And he'd be like, sure, I'll be there. Give me a minute, or give me 15, or hey, can I borrow your truck? Or hey, I don't know how to fix this, because I was always the go-to. Any sort of maintenance questions, like, hey, Brie, could you help change my oil? Like, I just can't figure it out. Like, sure, I got you. We've always, like, every unit I've ever been in, every section I've ever been in was always like camaraderie, and that's what I strive for, and I believe it's still super strong today.
Yeah,
because I guarantee I could pick up the phone and call a former first sergeant friend of mine, or another sergeant major friend of mine, or XYZ, and they're going to be there right at the drop of the hat. So
yeah,
that would be for them.
That's awesome. Yeah. And, we believe that too here at the foundation, that EOD is family and family for life. So it doesn't matter if you're active duty or separated, or what your status is. So I have to ask you, Brie, what has it been like to have a 22-year career in a male-dominated career field?
Yes. So it's true. I am 22 Army years old now. I hit the milestone back in January. And I think when you're working in a male-dominant career field, it's kind of a double-edged sword. You must show you're competent, but also that you're willing to learn at the same time. When we were fighting in two different wars in the Middle East, females were honestly really, truly needed. The combat maneuver units would select a female over the male assets in order to, when searching culottes, searching different areas of a village, because males weren't allowed to go in there, and to respect their cultural beliefs, they would choose the females. And then, especially being an EOD female, we were tasked to go into the areas where they're cooking, where the women were, and with our specific skills, we could look for IED components, HME precursors, any other sort of important information, and we could gather that through us being a woman versus a male coming in there and violating all of their cultural beliefs, creating more, I guess, disconnections or bad things within that village. And so yeah, and then it was like, I think a lot of my deployments were that way. Yeah, there were some deployments where the males would only speak to my team members. I'm like, hey, I'm E6, I'm right here.
Yeah.
But at the time, learning, like understanding their culture and taking a step back, you're like, okay, I get this. They need to talk to him. Let him do the talking. I'll just stand there and just provide oversight and guidance in the event he's going down the wrong path of questioning or any of that sort of stuff. But then that also leads right back into the family. It's like, we knew how to work as a team, where I wasn't feeling slighted that this village elder was approaching my team member and getting all grumpy, because that's their culture. You just have to understand that. So that goes into the things where you have to work hard, but not too hard. Then they'll call you a show off. You can't be mean, because then they'll think you're a B. You can't show emotion, and you can't show you're weak. And I know that this sounds like a Barbie monologue, but it's true, because you got to be in that mindset that it's not just you, and it's everybody else too. And it's not impossible. It's tough being a female in the service, but it's not impossible. Just don't let anyone discredit you. I walk into a room, I own it because I belong there. And the one thing that I think has worked the best for me, and you may hear this again, but I think it was my physical fitness and well-being, because there was never a time that I'd show up to a PT test and they're like, oh, wonder if Staff Sergeant Kotula is going to pass. No, they were going to say, oh, wonder how high Staff Sergeant Kotula is going to score today, or Sergeant First Class Kotula is leading PT. Crap, we're gonna be sucking, and we're gonna be hurting for a week. And I just think that drive there led me to focus on what I was bringing to the team, what I was providing, and also having that positive mentality and not taking, oh, they don't like me because I'm a girl or I'm weak. No, you show up and you're there, and they will respect you.
I love that. Just bringing that sense of confidence to your team. And yeah, that's great, Brie. So what advice would you give women coming into the EOD field now that you wish you would have known then?
So I love this topic. This is one of my favorites, of some of the questions that you sent me, only because I never had a female mentor in my younger years. It wasn't until I was in E8 that I actually had a true female mentor that I could look up to and ask questions like, hey, Sergeant Major, how do I do this? Or how do I get here? But she wasn't, and the thing was, she wasn't like me. She wasn't EOD. And I think that's what also drove me to ask her to be my mentor as well, because she saw a different side. She didn't see the male-dominant career field. She was in a different MOS. So I think that also helped. Some of the other ones, like, I would definitely seek out a positive role model. Negative one, yeah, it's kind of fun not to learn to do not what they did, but find a positive role model or mentor. Be a good human, like 100%. Be a good human. Don't trash your brothers and sisters just to get ahead, because that's going to break the family, and you don't want to be the one that breaks the camel's back. That's not fun. Have fun. Like, I've enjoyed every single position that I've taken on. I think I've taken a lot of risky jobs. Being a female recruiter EOD recruiter was pretty rough. Going into like some of the other high visibility job opportunities that I've had, just, you may not be at the duty station you want to be in, but like, grasp onto that job, make the best of it, and really, like, you're going to have so much fun going all over the world doing the things that you love to do, and just make the best of it.
Wow, Brie, that's so inspiring. I love that. I love that. So you mentioned that you had worked as a recruiter. So what are your thoughts on retention and recruitment?
So I can say that the Army's mission is to recruit America's best and brightest volunteers that are able to deploy, fight, and win. EOD is a specific MOS where we're a double volunteer. So not only do you have to volunteer for the Army, but you also have to volunteer to be EOD and then meet those standards. We do hold our service members a little higher than just your basic entry general MOSs, but with that entails, we have a top secret security clearance. We get to work for Secret Service. We get to work with local, federal, state law enforcement agencies, and you have to be mature and an adult. I would say I don't think we have a retention problem. I think I'd like to believe that Army EOD is doing very well retaining the best talent.
Awesome. So that's good. And I guess I kind of want to end this interview with, what do you think it is that makes the EOD community so strong?
I think it's our camaraderie. I can't mention a time where if there was one service, there was two services, there were three services, that we just didn't all migrate to each other. And it was like, whether it was a VIP or whether the EOD Memorial that's coming up in May, or just like another training event, we just tend to migrate to each other. And it's just like, hey, what class did you go to? Oh, that was way too long. What year did you go? And it's just like, it gets back to that brotherhood and sisterhood, just friendship. And it's just the camaraderie that we have across all four forces that I think is amazing, because we do attend the same school. We're trained exactly the same way. Yes, certain like the Air Force has a different mission, the Navy has a different mission, the Marines have a different mission than the Army, but we all understand what EOD is and what we bring to America's fighting force.
Oh, that's awesome, Brie. So are you going to be able to make it to the memorial this year?
I am. Actually just bought my ticket, so I guess to be determined, but yes, I was definitely.
Awesome. Cool, Brie. Well, thank you so much. I know you are so busy in your new position. So I really appreciate you taking the time to talk with us today. And we are going to end the interview with a couple of questions about your favorite things.
Okay.
So what is your favorite hobby?
All right. My favorite hobby is scuba diving. I love being under the water. I was actually originally certified as a advanced open water scuba diver when I went through EOD school back in 2006. And then just carried it on just from then on. And then when I got out to Hawaii, I finished my instructor certification, and being able to do what I love, teach people what I love, and then just be underwater in just one of the United States' most beautiful areas was just, yeah, it was awesome. So being underwater with your buddy and a bunch of fish, yeah, hands down.
Cool.
Favorite.
That is so cool. What is your favorite way to stay fit?
So that's a tough one. So I tend to do a lot of things. I try to hold a standardized program, but then I'll get to the gym and there'll be somebody else doing something. I'm like, oh, that looks cool, so let me go do that. So I focus my workouts between functional fitness and then just a variety of different ways to do cardio. So whether it's running or getting on the rower, getting on a spin bike or the air bike, I just try and keep it active. And if you're looking for me on a specific base, you'll find me either in my office or in the gym.
That's cool. What is your favorite band or genre of music?
So this one was hard. I don't know. So it's literally anything I can sing to. So really? I'm literally all over the place. My poor dog. I'll be sweeping the floor, folding laundry or something. I just belt out a tune. I'm like, hey Alexa, play whatever, and she'll start going. And I was like, all right, let's go.
Oh, how fun!
And I'll just twist whatever the radio to something I can sing to, whether I'm driving home to see my parents or whatever. It's just, yep, it is a concert in my car.
Ah, that's neat. That's so neat. What kind of dog do you have?
I have a pug. She's 13 in about 10 days.
Wow.
Yeah, I got her. I got her after behavioral health said I needed a pet.
What did you name her?
Molly.
Molly. Oh, how sweet. Molly the pug. You'll have to share a picture with us. We can post with this interview.
I will. I will definitely do that.
Awesome. Okay, so last question. What is your favorite recipe?
I love cooking. So right now, I'd say it's healthy chicken parm. I found a way to not, if you don't bread the chicken, and just put it in Italian seasoning, pan fry it a little bit, and then put it in the oven with your sauce and your cheese. Man, it's so good. That's one of my favorite comfort foods. If I'm feeling grumpy or I had a bad day, guess what? I'm making chicken parm at my house.
That is good. Ooh, I love that recipe. I'm going to have to try it.
All right. I'll send you what I do.
Yeah, send it and I'll share it with the podcast too. But I mean, it's funny because I've never made chicken parm in my life, but I made it a couple weeks ago and I did think it was like unhealthy. So that's really cool that you have the healthy version.
I do. That was one of my things. I was determined I was going to figure it out and not bread the chicken, because sometimes the chicken gets soggy when it's all like the breading gets soggy under the sauce. So it was just like, all right, let's figure this out. I can do this.
That's neat. That's neat. If you haven't noticed, Brie has been having fireworks going off behind her during this interview, which has never happened in any interview I've ever done. And we still cannot figure out why that started happening. But shortly after getting off the podcast, while we were discussing the fireworks, Brie had a very funny story that I thought was really special and wanted to share it on the podcast.
All right. So you saw the fireworks. And so one time my former boss and I, Lieutenant Colonel Pierce, were sitting in a conference and they were talking, this general was up there speaking and he's like, what do you think your walkout song is? Like, always the command sergeant major is like, like the jaw sound, and always always pomp and circumstance. He said, but what do you think your walkout song is going to be? So I turned to my boss and I was like, hey, sir, what do you think my walkout song? He was like, oh, too easy. Katy Perry, Fireworks. Like, baby, you're a firework. So
that is wild.
Fitting. I think he's reaching out from Hawaii to come say hi.
Yeah, I mean, it's something for sure. I was like, well, she has a sparkling personality, but no, that's Fireworks. Katy Perry is perfect. And then, Brie, also, if you wouldn't mind sharing some of the advice that he had actually given to you that really helped shape your career and your mindset.
Oh, yeah. So he was my second battalion commander, but it was just a transition period. So one was coming in, the previous one had left, and we were in a state of the battalion where we had a new brigade change, we had a new ATSC change, so we were not in a good place morale-wise throughout the battalion. So he comes in and he's a very brilliant man, and he's got a very positive attitude, and he's like, hey, you know what, this is what we're going to focus. He's like, I'm not going to come and I'm not going to BS you guys, I'm not going to blow your mind with thousands of priorities. We're going to focus on 3. Be a good human was the first one, and he said, be part of a team, be an honest member of that team and do your job. And the third one was just have fun. Like, you're in Hawaii, if you're not having fun, there's something wrong. If you don't love what you do, change it. Like, change your mentality. Have fun with whatever you do. I
love that. Oh my goodness. Be a good human. I just love that. I think I'm going to be using that.
I use it often because now I transitioned from a job where I have all soldiers and officers underneath me to now I'm working with not only officers, I have very few enlisted personnel underneath me, but I'm working with a huge force of about 1,000 civilians. So it's, you walk up, you be a good human, you treat them the way you, not necessarily the way you want to be treated, but you treat them the way that they should be treated, which should be, everybody should be treated the same. And it's just awesome. It's this, I think this job is going to be perfect for my personality. It's like, hey, what are we doing here? I'm your friendly Garrison CSM. Well, how can I help you?
Brie, that's awesome. Well, thanks again for this explanation to the mystery fireworks. And we're excited for you in your new position, and we wish you the very best.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll see you at the ball.
All right, I'll be there.
All right.
Thank you for listening to our Behind the Warrior podcast, brought to you by the EOD Warrior Foundation. The EOD Warrior Foundation is a 501c3 nonprofit organization serving the EOD community by providing financial assistance, scholarships, and providing hope and wellness resources for the active duty, reserve, National Guard, retired, and veteran EOD communities and their families. We also honor our fallen and wounded EOD technicians by maintaining the EOD Memorial and Remembrance Garden. We do all this through the generosity of individual and corporate donors and sponsors. If you would like to assist the foundation or support our Behind the Warrior podcast, click the link on our webpage at eodwarriorfoundation.org or contact us at info@eodwarriorfoundation.org. Thank you for listening, and don't forget to tell a friend. The various opinions, beliefs, and viewpoints expressed by guests, contributors, and participants of the Behind the Warrior podcast are their own and are intended for informational purposes only. They do not necessarily reflect the opinions, beliefs, viewpoints, or policies of the EOD Warrior Foundation or its employees and volunteers.